I'm going to read a nice book that was provided to me. I don't recall it this time. I think I may have purchased it or it may have been given to me as a gift. It's published some time ago. Looks like it's the actual year here. First publication, some of them, this one is from 1962, but some of these are from 1914, 1957, 1938, and so on. This is written by a translation by Mr. Richard Molière, the Misanthrope. Probably the greatest and certainly the most complex of all of Molière's comedies. It was at the height of his career as an actor, producer, a dramatist, indeed his royal patron, had taken it upon himself in some of the magnificent court productions. The Misanthrope was initially presented at Richelieu's theatre in Palais Royal in Paris, but unlike the other comedies of Molière, it had only mild success. It was because it was too provocative. The piece had been called Molaire's Hamlet, meaning the play is the problem. To his own age, the 17th century, it has been called Alasafé, was without a doubt a comic figure, somewhat grotesque in his highly principled rigidity and his blunt rejection of accepted social patterns of behavior. Succeeding ages have reversed this judgment. Society has become the object of derision for its absurdities and its facile compromises. Today we are inclined to see both sides of the argument presented in this comedy and enjoy the consequence of this ambiguity. A helpful approach to the play and to Molière's theatre in general is by way of theatrical history. We know that the great French dramatist was much more interested as well as influenced by the Italian comedians that dell'arte productions would become so popular in Paris, indeed in all of France. Alearde Nicolai accounts this type of theater in part 2, certain pages, throws light upon Molière's plays, for it explains one of the traditions upon which the dramatist depended. In particular, Molière was enchanted with the vitality of this Italian style, the professional dash and deftness of the stage business, the brilliance of grotesque characterizations. This translation reprinted here in the 1950s. Mr. Richard has indicated the rationale behind the verse rendition to control the tone, the parody, the rage, the tragic effects discussed by Tournel's essay to bridge by means of rhythm and rhyme the great gaps between high comedy and farce, to indicate lofty diction and ordinary talk, to indicate deep character and shallow people, to maintain the play's musical intricacy, and finally to preserve both the redundancy and logic of a common human dialogue. So the different characters here are Dubois, and this is Alassé's valet. There's a guard of the Marshalsea. There's Basque, who's Clamine's servant. There's Acoste Saladantra, and that's the Marquez. And then there's Arisone, a friend of Suleiman. Alante is Suleiman's cousin. Suleimani is Alasat's beloved. Oronta is in love with Suleimani. Filinati is Alaseti's friend. Alasete is in love with Suleimani. The scene throughout is in Suleimani's house at Paris. Filante says, "Now what's gotten into you? Alessante responds, kindly leave me alone. Phil says, come, what is it? The laborious, mournful tone. Alessante says, leave me, I said, you spoil my solitude. Phil says, oh, listen me now, don't be rude. Alessante says, I choose to be rude, sir, and to be hard of hearing. Phil says, these ugly moods of yours are not endearing. Friends we are, I must really insist. Alice says, abruptly rising, friends, you say? Well, take me off of your list. I've been your friend until now, as you well know, but after what I saw a moment ago, I tell you flatly that our ways must part. I wish no place in a dishonest heart. Phil says, why, what have I done? Alice, is this quite just? Alice says, my God, you ought to die of self-disgust. I call your conduct inexcusable, sir. Every man of honor will concur. I see you almost hug a man to death. Exclaim for joy until you're out of breath. And supplement these loving demonstrations with endless offers, vows, and protestations. Then I ask you, who is that I find that you can barely bring his name to mind? Once the man's back is turned, you cease to love him, and speak with absolute indifference of him? By God, I say it's base and scandalous to falsify the heart's affection thus. If I caught myself behaving in such a way, I'd hang myself for shame without delay. Phil says, it hardly seems a hanging matter to me. I hope that you will take it graciously. If I extend myself a slight reprieve, and live a little longer, by your leave. Alice, how dare you joke about a crime so grave? What crime? How else are people to behave? Alice says, I'd have them be sincere. Never part with a word that isn't from the heart. Phil says, when someone greets us with a show of pleasure, that's but polite to give them equal measure. Return their love the best that we know how, and trade him offer for offer, vow for vow. Alice says, no. This formula you'd have me follow, however fashionable, is false and hollow. I despise the frenzied operations of these bartenders of protestations, these lavishers of meaningless embraces, these utterers of obliging commonplaces, who court and flatter everyone on earth, and praise the fool no less than the man of worth. Should you rejoice that someone like you offers their love and service, swears to be true, and fills your ears with praises of your name? When to the first damned fop he'll say the same. No. No self-respecting heart would dream of prizing so promiscuous an esteem. However high the praise, there's nothing worse than sharing honors with the universe. Esteem is founded on comparison. To honor all men is to honor no one. Since you embrace this indiscriminate vice, your friendship comes at far too cheap a price. I spurn the easy tribute of a heart which will not set the worthy man apart. I choose, sir, to be chosen and inclined. The friend of mankind is no friend of mine. Phil states, but in a polite society, custom decrees that we show a certain outward courtesies. Alice says, no, we should condemn with all of our force such false and artificial intercourse. Let people behave like people. Let them display their innermost heart in everything they say. Let the heart speak Let our sentiments not mask themselves in silly, foolish compliments. Phil states, in certain cases, it would be uncouth and most absurd to speak the naked truth with all respect. For all your exalted notions, it is often best to veil your true emotions. Would it be the social fabric come undone if we were wholly frank with everyone? Suppose you met someone who couldn't bear, would you inform them of it then and there? Yes. Then you tell old Emily is pathetic the way she daubs her features with cosmetics and plays the gay coquette at 6'4"? I would. And would you call Dorillas a bore and tell him every ear at court is lame from hearing him brag about his noble's name? Precisely. Are you joking? Au contraire. In this regard, there's none I choose to spare. All are corrupt. There's nothing to be seen in court or town but aggravates my spleen. I fall in too deep gloom and melancholy when I survey the scenes of human's follies, finding on every hand base flattery, justice, fraud, self-interest, treachery. Ah, it's too much. People have grown so base. I mean, to break with the whole human race. Phil states, this philosophic rage is a bit extreme. You've no idea how comical you seem. Indeed, we're like those brothers in the play called School for Husbands, one of whom was Prey. Alice states, enough now. None of your stupid similes. Phil states, then let's have no more tirades, if you please. The world won't change whatever you say or do. And since plain speaking means so much to you, I'll tell you plainly that by being frank, you have certainly earned the reputation of a crank, and that you're thought ridiculous when you rage on and rant on and on against the manners of that age. Alice states, so much the better. Just what I'd wish to hear. No news could be more grateful to my ears. All people are so detestable in my eyes. I should be sorry if they thought me wise. Phil states, your hatred's very sweeping, is it not? Alice states, quite right. I hate the whole degraded lot. Phil states, must all poor human creatures be embraced without distinction by your vast, unending distaste? Even in these bad times, there are surely a few. No, Alice states, I include all people in one dim view. Some people I hate for being rogues. The others I hate because they treat the rogues like brothers, and lacking a virtuous scorn for what is vile, receive the villains with a complacent smile. Notice how tolerant people choose to be toward that bold rascal who's at law with me. His social polish can never conceal the nature. One sees at once that he's a treacherous creature. No one could possibly be taken in by those soft speeches, that a sugary grin. The world knows the shady means by which the low brows, grown so powerful and rich, and risen to a rank so bright and so high, that virtues can but blush and merit sigh. Whenever his name comes up in conversation, none will defend his wretched reputation. Call him naive, a liar, a scoundrel, and all the rest. Each head will nod, and no one will ever protest. And yet his smirk is seen in every vile house. He's greeted everywhere with smiles and bows. And when there's any honor that can be got by pulling strings, he'll get it like it's a knot. My God, it chills my heart to see the ways certain people have come to terms with evil. Nowadays, sometimes, I swear, I'm moved to flee and find some desert land unfolded, untouched, undisturbed by humankind. Phil states, oh, let's forget the follies of the times and pardon people who are petty, insignificant, unexistent crimes. Let's have an end to the rantings and the railings and the ravings and the railings and show some leniency toward human failings. This world requires a pliant rectitude. Too stern a virtue makes one stiff and rude. Good sense views all extremes with detestation and bids us to be noble and live in moderation. The rigid virtues of ancient days are not for us. They jar with all our ways and ask of us too lofty and too impossible of imperfections. Wise people accept their times without too much objection. And there's no greater folly, if you ask me, than trying to reform through your means this society. Like you, I see each day 101 unhandsome actions that might be better done. But still, for all the faults that meet my view, I'm never known to storm and rant and rave like you. I take people as they are, or let them be. I teach my soul to bear their frailty. And whether in court or town, whatever the scene, my phlegm's as philosophic as your spleen. Alice states, this phlegm which you so eloquently condemn, does nothing ever rile it up, my friend. Suppose some man you trust should treacherously conspire to rob you of your properties and do their best to wreck your reputation. Wouldn't you feel indignation? Phil stated, why no. These faults of which you so complain are part of human nature, I maintain. And it's no more a matter for disgust that men are naivish, selfish, and unjust. That the vultures dine upon the meat of the dead, and that the wolves are furious and apes ill-bred, uncouth. Alice states, shall I see myself betrayed, robbed, torn to bits, and not? Oh, let's be still and rest these wits. Enough of reasoning now. I've had my fill. Phil states, indeed, you would do well, sir, to be still, rage less at your opponent, and give thought to how you'll win this suit that he's brought. Alice states, I assure you I will do nothing of the sort. Phil states, then who will plead your case before the court? Alice states, reason, right, justice will plead for me. Phil states, oh Lord, what judges do you plan to see? Alice states, why none? The justice of my cause is all too clear. Phil states, of course, man, but there's politics to fear.